Let's Spaces, it's your brother VJ from the Ancient Mother. Now, it's been a minute. It's good to have you back. For anybody who's new to this, we are Africa. I almost said South. How could I limit the capacity of what we do? We are Africa's most poignant hip-hop podcast. What we basically do is we cover, profile, excavate, digest the movement of hip-hop as it manifests throughout the whole continent. Now we do this through different inserts, interviews, and of course the crowd favorite reviews that I'm about to do right now. Now the review that I'm going to do is an album by a South African rapper who needs no introduction for those who might not be familiar. YoungstaCPT, as the name says, is practically the valiant poster child of Cape Town, having put himself in a position of translating the narratives of a city which, as iconic as it is globally, has never had the real internal stories of the people told in a way that were holistic and thoroughly broad. And Youngsta came as an artist who saw that gap, and I think through the chronology of his body of work, you see somebody who's very deliberate about claiming the title of the voice of the Cape. Latest project he does with one of the most jet-setting producers in the scene right now, the boy Shaney Jay. They team up to deliver a project that is super filled with energy. It's pomp, it's a fullness that is vivid with so much sonic imagination. Shaney Jay being somebody who primarily does this kind of open, sparse, horn-centric, loud, almost marching band-esque spirit trap sound, gives Youngsta's attempt at cracking industry attention something that is very, very close to the finish line in this project. And I say close to the finish line because if you followed YoungstaCPT's catalog throughout the years, it's quite prolific. We've got things that dabble into the boom bap alternative scene, like my favorite project that he did with Maloon the Boom, Young Loon, Dali Boom. We've got The Cape and Good Hope. It goes on and on and on. We've got the most recent one, which kind of chronicled a personal portrayal of his intimate moments growing up in the Kaap, 3T. And of course now he comes again, and what is he bringing this time? See, YoungstaCPT's whole angle as an MC doesn't change from literally being this voice. He's going to be doing this up until South Africa and the rest of the continent, and hopefully the rest of the world hears it. And I think he's been knocking very consistently at this mode of hip-hop for a minute, and I support that because he understands what he's about. He's been able to realize that outside of the movement of Afrikaans rap, Cape Town lacks an MC who primarily raps in English, who connects the tissue, the cultural fiber of Cape Town in a way that addresses some of these nuances of blackness and colored identity, who speaks for a practically marginalized people who have been defined through this term colored, and who's able to look at the rest of South Africa through a lens that tries to, one, reconcile some of the conflicts and address a lot of the issues while still reminding us that we need to give ourselves the reward of having a good time when we can. So Youngsta continues with this, and Shaney Jay injects a youthful vigor to Youngsta's music. Tracks like Ping are like a testament to the fact that Youngsta himself has been studying the dynamics of how to write hooks that fall in alignment with a lot of the trap-centered club music in today's scene. And I think he's pretty much 75 to 80% there, because in this example of a track, Ping, the hook is in two parts. You got that part where he goes, they can't me out, and abidida, and then the second part, which kind of goes into the ping 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 ping. And I think if he had kind of focused on the former, there's a stronger attention dynamic, because, to be quite honest, the latter rings in a way that's kind of corny. And I think this is Youngsta's weakness in a lot of these joints. He tends to reduce the capital of musical attention to this idea of repetition. And this is something that a lot of artists musically, particularly rappers, are guilty of. They think a good hook is a simple phrase that can be repeated over and over again. And yes, it is in that framework, but you don't just take any phrase. You try to understand what are the kind of things people say to themselves on a day-to-day basis. You try to understand the subconscious vernacular of the everyday person. And I don't think Youngsta is at a level where his songwriting skill really extracts that like somebody in the ilk of an AKA could, where the simplicity of the lyrics is not the point in and of itself. It's the poignancy of what is being said. It's understanding that people don't just say anything to themselves. They say certain things that ring true when they're not only catchy, but they really address a philosophical inclination that people have. So I think that Youngsta's still kind of missing the idea of what people are feeling, and he's jumping for how the words sound, and as a result most of these hooks really fall into the campier side. They are forgettable at the very least, extremely cringy at the very most. But Shaney Jay saves the day because he blankets a lot of this chorus mediocrity in like a very hefty, full energy that is barking straight at you like Dakeza's dogs right outside. The energy and vigor is something that allows for the music to stand out in ways that are stark. Therefore, Shaney Jay's production allows for Youngsta's lyrics, be they mediocre or spectacular, such as on joints like Oppenheimer, where he really opens up and tries to create this nuanced balance of South African crime story, the inner workings of the politics, into a personal memoir of fighting corruption on a personal level. And of course, tracks like Stressful that do address these kind of subtleties of what it's like to really be going through the most. And of course, the track that I think he's gunning on, Benny McCarthy, which celebrates the colored icon, black icon. Many will feel that's a contradiction, but again, this contradiction, this coming together of South African worlds in their political implications, is something that I think Youngsta still manages to do, albeit in ways that are sometimes chasing after tropes and they don't really deliver on the real authenticity aspect. All in all, the consistency of the project on a sonic level is something that is thoroughly impressive. Shout out to Shaney Jay for giving Youngsta the sonic structural world to really dive and be free with his musicality. Ultimately, I think this project is, like I said, a close to the finish line attempt at Youngsta's journey at, I think, reaching this point of conclusively being hailed one of South Africa's most influential rappers, because I think you could definitely tick the box of being one of, if not the most influential rapper of his generation from the Cape. And I think he's increasingly growing to a level where we can put him amongst POC and the likes as being the representative of Cape Town in particular. But of course, it's broader than that. It spreads into the rest of Azania, and then as a result, the rest of Africa as a continent. And I, for one, believe in what Youngsta has to do. He has enough heart, he has enough energy, he has enough confidence, he has enough business acumen, strategy, and understanding of the game to grow and constantly evolve. And I think Struggle for Beauty, even in its title, represents that. I think this is the beauty that he and Shaney Jay are referring to. They're referring to this ultimate place of sublime success. They're referring to this place where you get to sit in the presence of what you've worked for and really take it in and understand the implications of that. But I think in this point, it's a cliffhanger. It's a question mark into whether or not they'll reach it as soon as they think. So I think ultimately, I'm giving this project a solid 7 out of 10 because it goes way past the average mark in its production quality. I can see a lot of this joint being played as bangers in the club to kind of introduce the more bigger songs. It's definitely one that's cruise-worthy if you're riding and kind of trying to create an atmosphere of buoyant joy and reflection at the same time. You could play this on a road trip. You can play this while you're just kind of reflecting in your own head with the earphones on. As a result, it's broad enough, musically diverse enough, well executed enough for it to jump past the 5 into the 6, cross the 6.5 into a mark where it settles on a 7. And I think a lot of that is the strength of Shaney Jay. Youngsta as an MC is kind of certified, but certified is one thing, but growing is another. And I think this is the emphasis that this project kind of puts them into the context of. It says, how can they grow in the climate that is increasingly undermining the value of hip-hop in general, rap music in particular, and of course the incessant sense of piano influence, which is making it harder for the general listener to catch the attention of music just like this in the era that we live in. My name is VJ, the brother from the ancient mother. Shout out to Youngsta for positioning himself as a national spokesperson. And not only for his province in particular, but for the streets. We need more MCs who really want to become journalists of the experiences of the forgotten people, and are not just kind of using that as clickbait to amass a level of influence that they're going to throw back into the faces of the poor when they're rich enough to do splits on 2 Bentleys. Shout out.